Okay, welcome everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and to honor the work and the person of Stephanie Wells, teacher extraordinaire. I'm Susan Hoffman, yay! I'm Susan Hoffman, Ollie's Director and Assistant Dean for Lifelong Learning here at Berkeley. I have had the pleasure to work with Stephanie for now 10 years, going on 11. And as we've worked together, as she has developed new courses, introducing authors and books and histories that have engaged hundreds and hundreds of Ollie members, and they keep clamoring for more. The program lists the courses Stephanie has taught for Ollie. It's staggering in its breadth and depth. She has reintroduced us to authors we thought we knew, we didn't, and brought us into literatures too often marginalized or neglected. At a time when our diversity is itself under attack, she has sought to foreground the great diversity of writers, the literature, how they write, what they write about, the characters that animate their stories. She does not shy away from difficult material like metafiction, making it understandable and worth knowing. She includes classic writers like her in her Femininity series, opening them up to us anew, word for word, breath for breath. She has had us reread Toni Morrison. We were talking about the reading of Toni Morrison that just had us so engaged in our own sort of tackling the internal messages and bias that we have about each other. She has also opened up the new voices and other forms of women's literature and poetry, including recently this new course on sexual identity and the self, even looking deeper into suburban ennui and rethinking modernity. It is a veritable memory chalet of themes and questions at the core of who we are and how we live together. That's how I experience it. Each course on that list has been an absolute gem, a tour de force. She's also a great collaborator. When Larry Rinder at the Berkeley Art Museum Pacific Film Archive wondered, could Ollie offer a course that's linked to their exhibition that was the Einstein-inspired avant-garde and relativity, it was Stephanie who put together a wonderful course linking literature, science, and art. Disciplines talking to each other, not past each other. In all of the intellectual breadth and depth of her work, she's at the same time an accessible, engaging, generous teacher whose classroom is inclusive and respectful, where all voices are heard and listened to. It's wonderful that I get to begin. I will continue at the end, but in the meantime, we have Dean Rick Rousseau, who's the Dean of Extended Education. He's here to make remarks, and then we'll follow with Ollie members with the in-classroom experience. And so, Rick, would you go next?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Susan. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to all of you online who are participating also. So I'm going to start with a question, which I've written down here. So, do we take enough time out from the everyday to recognize excellence overall, and in particular, excellence in the classroom? In the Division of Extended Education, which Susan just told you I'm the dean, we know the challenges that face the university and the classroom, the economics of paying for higher education expenses, and the politics which challenge our freedom to learn. The pressures are enormous. And yet, our values guide us. As a division, we will fortify our commitment to what is referred to by the acronym DEIBJ, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, belonging, and justice. These values are being trivialized by too many in power as wokeness or political correctness. The university sees these values as more important than ever. The freedom to learn, inclusiveness, and yes, excellence in teaching and learning. We see that these values work together exponentially. It's a path to excellence. We're here today because Stephanie stands for these values. We recognize her commitment to the talent. At the same time, we recognize the power of learning, the power of the classroom. The accomplishment of 22 courses in 10 years at OLLI at Berkeley is extraordinary. And even more so is the commitment to excellence Dr. Wells has shown every day as she has stepped into the OLLI classroom. Thank you, Dr. Wells, and thank you, OLLI members on the stage and this audience for making the OLLI classroom a model for engaged teaching and learning. Thank you very much. And thank you, Susan. Okay.
Thank you very much. And we're just getting started. So now, what is going to be really incredible and the main event is to hear from OLLI members who have been in a few classes, maybe like many classes of yours. And so what I'd like to do is ask Linda Wing if she'd come up. Linda is the co-chair of the curriculum committee, and you see her in many classes, but this one has a special place in her heart. Linda.
Thank you, Susan. For most of my adult life, I read job-related nonfiction almost exclusively. In particular, I devoured research studies looking for educational models that demonstrated long-term positive effects on children's learning and achievement. And you know, the goal of that type of writing is to be so clear there is no mistaking the meaning. Empirical evidence and objectivity are the currencies of that realm. But after I retired and became an OLLI member, I decided to begin a journey into reading novels, short stories, memoirs. In the OLLI brochure, I saw that Stephanie Wells was scheduled to teach a course on the selected works of Toni Morrison, including the novel Beloved. I decided to enroll, but I was completely daunted. I had read several New York Times articles about Beloved when it was first published, and I remember distinctly one reviewer stated that Morrison's prose envelops readers in a kind of moral and emotional intensity that few writers ever attempt. So I knew that Beloved stood in stark contrast to the kind of research-based articles and books that I had spent 40 years reading. So I signed up for the course, but with a lot of trepidation. Because of Stephanie's depth of thought and clarity of communication, I learned to confront the prose in Beloved, to see that Morrison evokes some of the most beautiful, but also some of the most horrific aspects of the human condition. The character Setha is a mother whose love for her daughter is so strong and fiercely protective that she murders her daughter in order to spare her the horrors of slavery, a fate worse than death. That story has stayed with me ever since. The prose is powerful, the setting is terrifying, and Setha is based on a real woman named Margaret Garner. I learned from Stephanie that Beloved epitomizes the worst of American history, but the best of American literature. Since then, I've taken 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 courses from Stephanie. It was the course on 19th century British novels that I came to a full realization of why I enroll in Stephanie's courses time and time again. In that course, we read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and you know one of the characters is Victor Frankenstein. He is a scientist. I don't know if Stephanie was inspired by Frankenstein, but one day she brought scientific tools to class and took us on a science field trip to the parking lot behind the Golden Bear Center. There she taught us how to use the tools to study the eclipse of the sun that was going to happen that day during our class's time. What were the tools she taught us to use? Cheez-Its. Who knew that Cheez-Its could be used to pinpoint project images of the sun on a piece of paper so that you could observe the eclipse safely? So everyone enjoyed that experience doing science and studying Frankenstein in the same class, demonstrating that Stephanie is a magnificent teacher of literature, but also a joyful, albeit part-time, teacher of science. What's more, it dawned on me that what distinguishes Stephanie as well is that she engenders a sense of community in her courses, a community of OLLI members from diverse backgrounds who develop common bonds as readers and learners, a community of respect and integrity modeled by Stephanie that enables us OLLI members to be absolutely intrepid in asking questions and making comments in order to deepen our learning. So to close, I want to thank Stephanie, not only for her brilliant intellect, her passion for teaching, but also her commitment to building a community culture of fearless learning. And this is for you.
And then we have Janice Jackson, who will come to the microphone. Do you need your walker? Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to open first by thanking you for coming to a celebration to honor excellence in teaching. And we live at a moment where teaching does not have the respect it deserves. So I'm going to read my comments from, two perspectives. Thank you. I want to open with two quotes from Toni Morrison. "You are your best thing." And second, definitions belong to the definers, not the defined. I will approach my comments from two perspectives. One, as a teacher educator who prepared teachers for in-service and teachers in practice. And then second, as a person whose college friends were friends of, as we knew her, Chloe Warford, AKA Toni Morrison. So in terms of teacher education, which I have deep respect for teaching, Stephanie demonstrated excellence in what it means to be a high-quality teaching. First, she has a deep knowledge of her content, and she shares it in a way that encourages others to engage and deepen their own understanding. She situates herself in relationship to the topic. The two courses I had with her were about African American women. First, Toni Morrison, and then a group of African American women. She was clear that she understood that her whiteness played a role in how she read the literature and how she shared it with others. Second, she created a learning community. And the way she created that community is she would ask students to simply say their names when they raised their hands or when they would speak. She enjoyed learning with and about students. She encouraged students to share our thoughts and ask questions about the things she said. So she didn't set herself up as the only one who had any thoughts in the room. Her responses to students' questions were thoughtful, respectful. She set a very high standard for discourse. You couldn't just walk in the room and have an opinion. She'd say, "Tell me where you found that in the text." Right? That's what good teaching is about. She also made comments when students would share ideas, and she would encourage others to do the same. She was respectful when a student would make what I call a faulty comment. And let me explain that. As an African American woman who was often one of 2 or 3 folks of color in a room largely filled with other white students, she was the one who paid attention to the comments and how they affected other students. I often, having spent much of my learning career in predominantly white classroom, had to always be on guard for that one time or many times that students made disparaging comments about folks of color. And I was the first one to go like that. I didn't have to do that in Stephanie's class. I was free to simply be present. She would also encourage us when we said things, because we can all make mistakes, to check ourselves. And I remember in particular, in one of the books that I will talk about later, I thought I was clear about what was going on. And as I listened to the conversation she led, I was like, oh, maybe I didn't really get that right when I was reading the book. So I thank her for that. And then the second way I am grateful to Stephanie for the way she helped me understand a family friend. Chloe Wolford, as we know her, aka Toni Morrison, was a student with my parents at Harvard University. And what was interesting is she was one of a set of friends where one became an ambassador to the UN, one was a physicist, one was a Tuskegee Airman. So she was just one of the excellent. But in the class, I learned why her writings were so important. I was introduced first to The Bluest Eye, and I thought I got it, that it was helping me understand the complexity of racial identity in a world that didn't really want you to be who you were. But Toni Morrison, in many of her stories, told a story of the joy of Black life and the complexity of Black life. So I read many of her works. And then I came to Stephanie's second class that I took about Black women in literature. And we read, I never pronounce it right, so if I get it wrong, you can shout it out, Ray Conteef. That's close. And the book was about recognizing that you bring yourself to however you understand the world. And it was a story of two girls that Toni Morrison didn't tell us their race, but we knew they were different. And we had to sort of make sense of it all. And I can remember being certain that I knew who was what until I was in Stephanie's class. She shared her own reflection, and then she called on us to do the same. And I remember having the moment when the light bulb went off where I said, I thought I understood. Now I need to check myself more. So I am always grateful to you for that class and for your welcoming us to be who we are and to reflect on that regularly.
Janice, thank you very much. Tom Litter, I haven't checked this, but he claims to have taken more Stephanie Wells classes than anybody else. And he's next.
I've been involved with literature, study of literature. I've been involved with the study of literature for a good 65 years. As a student, as a teacher, and as a teacher trainer at all levels. And I'm sometimes prone to making strong statements, and this one is true. I maintain that Stephanie is the best teacher I have ever had. I say that to friends frequently. I think that what convinced me was when I took the Sound and Fury class, a class on Faulkner. Faulkner was a writer I could never handle on my own. I tried teaching him, I couldn't do it. I was scared of Faulkner. And then Stephanie led us through the Sound and the Fury, chapter by chapter, to the point where it became a work of poetry for me, so much so that I leave it on my phone, the audio version. And whenever I have some time, I just turn it on and listen to it. And I feel I'm coming back to an old friend. It really is a profound experience, was a profound experience for me. And then at sort of a different level, or different scope, I watched her teach a bunch of white-haired old fogies, that's us. I watched her teach us and get us excited about counting syllables in lines of poetry and deciding which ones were stressed and unstressed. And that's pretty amazing. I also have found that she gives us assignments, and mostly reading assignments. And for the first time in my whole life, I look forward to my homework because it's always worthwhile, it's always interesting. And I always know that I'm going to get more out of it as soon as I finished it and get to class. It's really a pretty profound experience. I maintain that Stephanie could teach a class on the phone book and we would get excited, analyzing the order of the names or whatever. In closing, just let me say, I think we are extremely lucky here at Ollie. We have a number, more than a number, we have many superb teachers. I think Stephanie is at the very top, and I'm very grateful. Thanks.
And the moment we've been waiting for, to bring our honoree to the microphone. And just if you would say a few words. I mean, it's not your classroom, sort of, but it is. Stephanie.
Thank you. I couldn't be simultaneously more proud and more humbled by the things that I've heard. Tom and Linda and Janice and Susan, thank you so much for your words and your support. It's an honor to be here and to be affiliated with this great university where I started my own academic career. Everyone who's worked with me in this learning community and this program has been so interested and so interesting and so supportive. The entire staff of Ollie are people who are intellectually sparking all the time. Max, Rob, Nancy, Leigh Charles, Patricia, Lisa, Casey, all the people that I've worked with over the years. I'm so appreciative for my colleagues here, especially Susan and Matt, who have led the program and been so nurturing of my own creativity and my own desires to follow interesting threads of themes that I want to pursue through different course descriptions. Susan's always calling me up and saying, what if we did a class on this? You want to develop that? And I just think like, yeah, that's so exciting. It feels so, such an open environment to make new connections between works and to start new courses. And so that's been a real breeding ground for invention and discovery for me. Like you guys said, I got to teach a class at the Berkeley Art Museum about the intersection of literature and painting and science, which was, it was a dream to teach at the museum. So that's all been a huge privilege. The best part, of course, is my students. The best part is the ways that my students in this program at Berkeley weave these connections with me and are so game to explore new things with me. These students with their engagement and their intellectual curiosity and their creativity, they come to me with their multiple advanced degrees far beyond mine, and they come to me with their gifts of books, and they're sending me links to theoretical articles and links to their art projects that they made in response to the poems we read in my class, and movie recommendations. They just are so on fire all the time and so engaged in the works. And when I was teaching in the pandemic, it was my first time teaching on Zoom, and these Zoom screens I'd have like 3 or 4 Zoom screens filled up with little squares of people, and the chat would be flying as they just were adding and adding their ideas and what they've studied about it and asking each other questions and getting in conversations with each other, just so hungry for connection and to share ideas. And now back in the classroom, I'll finish class and they stay and go out to eat with each other and to talk about the books more. And they ask me, what else did you want to put on the syllabus that you couldn't fit? What else can we read? And they'll send me emails of their conversations that they have after class, continuing the discussion. And usually all these students, as you know, are enrolled in multiple classes on multiple topics, on geopolitics and rock and roll and architecture, all at the same time. And they're just, the sparks just fly between them, these intellectual sparks. And it's just so inspiring to see the connection between the people, the hunger to explore new ideas and share ideas. It's been so fulfilling for me to work here. When we choose, when we make an active choice to study or contemplate art, in my case, literature, in the case of my students, literature, but any kind of art, we are making a choice to care about being human, to share each other's emotional expression, to listen to someone else's emotions, to share someone else's suffering and human experience. Art is the way that we make sense out of that experience, making art and consuming art and appreciating art. And I just feel that it's a hopeful world when I can be surrounded by people who care about ideas and care about human emotions and beauty, the beauty of a painting or the beauty of a line of poetry or the beauty of the sentence in a novel. And sharing my love and my passion for these ideas and exploring new ones with these readers in Berkeley has been one of the honors of my life, as is this award. So thank you so much. I'm so humbled. Thank you.
I can hear the clapping on this live stream audience as well. Can imagine the chat is exploding. I want to thank you all for coming. And I also really want to thank our members who are here with us to speak out, kind of echoing what I know, is true for you as well. What we're going to do now is we're going to retreat to the lobby area and have bubbly and cookies and nuts. We're going to take pictures with Stephanie, and I want to give her a certificate and a few other things. And I think she's got a box of Cheez It to take with her. right. The pinhole cameras. And then Stephanie is running off to teach suburban ennui. So as the teaching goes on, life goes on. I think you are right. This is a high point. I think let's treasure it. We're all together. Thank you, everybody.